Well, welcome back to with Talking with Tad. So glad you joined us this week. Pretty exciting conversation we're going to have today. Different than what we've been doing in the past, but it's something very important so that we can all remember what happened this week, this year, 100 years ago. It is pretty impressive, and I'm so glad we had women to take care of that. This week we have someone that has been the past president of the Texas Federation of Republican Women, also the immediate past president of the National Federation of Republican Women, and sits on a committee just about the topic we're going to talk about. In fact, I really feel honored because we get to work together on many different projects, but this is a big project for 2020. And our guest is Jody Rushton, and she has been very involved with that centennial vote that happened, that women 100 years ago, that women were able to vote. I mean, if you think about that, that was only 100 years. I know people that are like 92, 95 years old, and that wasn't long after we got our vote. Anyway, at least we got it. And Jody's going to talk a little bit about the history so that we inform each other and we can talk with others about it. So Jody, I want to thank you for all the work you have been doing over the years, and particularly about this one and working on educating and communicating with the women across the nation. And then also that's going to compute to Trump votes in November. So Jody, why don't you tell us a little bit, why is it so special in Texas, but why is it really special? What's the history that's going on?
Oh my goodness, there's so much history to tell. Thank you, Tony Ann, and thank you for this opportunity to speak and to be with you. And I want all of the audience to know how wonderful you are and how Texas is to have you as a National Committee woman. We are so fortunate in that right. And it is such a great time in our lives to be able to work together on something that our grandmothers and great-grandmothers worked on 100 years ago. Wow. Oh gosh, what they had to go through. It took them a half a century to even get this subject to be able to be discussed. And what they did and what they went through, it's history that we cannot push under the rug.
That's right.
They were abused, they were jailed, they were held without food for days and weeks at a time. They went through this horrible exercise of getting this to the forefront of Congress so that we could get the 19th Amendment. They did it out of love for our country. And we are doing this today out of love for our country. Women's suffrage in the United States of America, the legal right given to women to vote, was established over the course of many trial and errors. Sometimes they went to the states first and they had some luck there. They went to the localities, and sometimes women were given the right to vote on a limited basis. In other words, they may be able to vote in one election but not another. There are also some things about who could vote and who couldn't, and I'll mention that a little bit later. But the Republican Party always pioneered the right of women to vote. And they were consistent in their support throughout the long campaign and acceptance. And the Republican Party was the first major political party to advocate equal rights for women and to advocate equal pay for equal work. And it was in 1912 that President Theodore Roosevelt became the first president to adopt a woman's suffrage plank to their platform. And right after that, at the request of Susan B. Anthony, she had Senator A. Sargent from California introduce the 19th Amendment in 1878. Sargent's amendment, also known as the Susan B. Anthony Amendment, was defeated 4 times by a Democrat-held Senate. And it was not until the Republican Party regained control of that Senate that the Equal Suffrage Amendment finally passed in 1920. So it was certified in 1920, and isn't it a marvelous thing that we are having our convention, our national convention, on the exact same week, 100 years later?
Amazing.
Celebration. What a time for celebrating and for looking back at our history. And by the way, there will be a lot of attention on women and the 19th Amendment at this convention. This is our convention to really hold up our yellow pins and our love of the country and of this organization and show off this.
Well, there is no question that is going to be pretty exciting to celebrate the women. I mean, again, 100 years. You know, if you don't mind, I'd like to share that story real quick about the Yellow Rose and what they did throughout the states as each state would pass. And this is 100 years ago this week was when Texas passed theirs to ratify, to go forward. But in Tennessee, well, first of all, you wore red rose if you were against it, and you wore yellow rose if you were for it. And so the men would have these roses on. And in Tennessee, they were the last one to ratify, so we would have our 2/3 vote. But what happened was there was one gentleman very close to his mother. He had a red rose on, but he went into his pocket for some reason, as I know the story, pulls it out, and there's a note from his mother saying, "This is important to me." Took the red rose off and put the yellow rose on. And that is when we ended up getting to ratify. It still gives me goosebumps when I tell that story. I just love that relationship between the mom and the son and how that helped us go over the top.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that. And, you know, that kind of story, that kind of history is something that Melania Trump has envisioned as being her new program, building the movement. And this is especially reaching to young people to celebrate 100 years of suffrage, to honor this anniversary, but also to spend time educating our young people about how that happened, because we know if we don't do it, it won't get done. And as we see in today's world, it's very important to honor our history and to bring it with us, not let it consume us, but to bring it with us and ride along beside us and be a part of what we continue to do. And with Melania's new it's honoring this anniversary, and I'm looking forward to all of us being there and having our pictures taken, this exhibit, and being a part of the history and learning to teach how this happened so that we never forget.
Well, Jody, do you have some examples of what is going on across the nation, but maybe even here in Texas? What are we doing in Texas to kind of educate?
My goodness,
the women or the people?
There are so many things. As I go around the country and visit with other ladies throughout this country, it's like a fire caught hold, and everybody's so excited, and we're researching these pioneer women of our organization, and we're bringing it out. We're putting it in front of everyone who is in the NFRW organization. They get all kinds of history and updates on how those programs are going. And we are learning some of the greatest information on how this came about for instance, the name Senator A. Sargent from California. Senator, did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Sargent from California. I had not heard his name until just recently, and now we hear his name held in reverence for what he did. And this is a kind of history that we're uncovering. The states are bringing, they each have their own way of doing things. Wyoming was the first to send a program, a centennial program to us. And we are talking to them and doing videos of them all the time and putting it on our nfrw.org website. It's a wonderful website to go to for resources, for ideas of how to dress, our pins, our sashes, our colors of the suffrage movement. All of the states are joining in, and I encourage you, if you have an outfit, if you have a sash or a hat or a pin, bring it with you. Bring it with you to convention, because this is how we are going to identify how we, together, who we are. Bring it with you. If you don't, there'll be a lot of vendors, so you'll have lots of opportunities. But for the love of our country, we will all be there.
Well, that's right. And now, so in Texas, are we not having a luncheon? Is that going to happen at the Texas convention?
At the Texas convention, yes. At the Texas convention in July in Houston. And you can check on that by going to tfrw.org.
There you go, and sign up for that. Well, Jody, you have given us so much information. And ladies and gentlemen, if you end up wanting more, if you want to do an event, go to nfrw.org and check it out. Now, one thing we have to do before we end our Talking with Tad today is find out what is Jody's fun fact. You thought maybe I forgot because I didn't mention it in the beginning, but I didn't forget, Jody. So I want to know, what is the fun fact that you're going to share with us today?
Okay, it's all about my grandmothers. My two grandmothers lived in Oklahoma. One grandmother was out on the street holding up signs in her suffrage colors.
Really?
And she was the family whip. She had everybody lined up. The other grandmother did not get to vote in 1920. The one grandmother that was out holding the sign, she did. She got to vote in 1920. But the other grandmother did not get to vote because she was Cherokee.
Oh.
My two grandmothers teamed up, and the one grandmother helped the other get registered and get that vote, but it took several more years. Now, it could have been because she was in a tribal land in Oklahoma, or it could have been just the family thing, but she did not vote. And they worked together to get that done. And now the family joke is, who is it? Which grandmother do I take after? Ticketed, or the one that would quickly, at the drop of a hat, she would go fly off into a Cherokee Indian rage.
I have a feeling you have a little bit of both in you.
I do.
Is what I think you have. That is really a great fact. And I mean, that's history. So we challenge the people that are listening, maybe they should research and see if they have a family member that participated and help us women to have the right to vote and grow to where we are today. Jody, thank you so much for sharing all this. That was very special. And I thank all of you for listening. And I hope that you'll come back next week. But you can go ahead and share this Talking with Tad. And thank you for being with us. And hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.